The college football experience, SMU Mustangs 2024 season preview episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Yes, Underdog's giving away $15 million in Best Ball Mania 5. And they just dropped college football best ball. I've been waiting for that forever out there in the universe. Thank God someone's doing it. So get on over to Underdog, sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your first time deposit offer of up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Rhythm's college football and NFL picks and projections are now live. Claim your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. And remember, as always, folks, to let it ride.
This is Coach June Jones, and you're listening to SGPN. Let it ride.
Welcome to the college football experience, SMU Mustangs 2024 season preview episode. Pony up, all right? The Pony Express, we got it going back, all right? Where's Ron Meyer? Where's Dickerson? Where's that gold Corvette? Oh man, it's a good time to be an SMU fan. You got George W. You got this guy making calls.
It's easy to see a tide turn.
All right, like no affiliation with the university, but just
it's easy to see a tide turn.
It's not what you know; it's who you know.
I swear. Look, the college football, the college football world needs to watch out for what's going on there in Dallas, Texas, and I'm excited for it. We're going to talk about all that. YouTube.com/the college experience as we continue to break down all 134 college football teams with an hour-long podcast for each and every single team in the land. Yes, and now this is the SMU Mustang preview. If you're wondering just who the hell you're listening to, that's fair. My name is Colby Swinging Database Dad, a.k.a. Pick Dundee, a.k.a. The Cap Bozo.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
Probably drinking too much and celebrating too much and not sleeping. Would have killed a normal man, but no, that's gone. The medical advice I got from that was like being hit by lightning. Pretend it never happened and get on with your life.
Is there a more exciting team in all of college football moving forward?
You could argue no. I mean, they're coming off an 11-3 season where you win the American. They finally got their invite to a power conference. Let's hope the ACC is still a power conference in the next coming years. But man, if you're an SMU fan, you just have to be elated about the present and the future.
They might be a power conference, even if Clemson, Florida State leaves because of SMU. That is the sneaky good get, I think, by the ACC. The Stanford and Cal ones, I don't know, but we'll figure that out. But SMU one makes a lot of sense. I am joined by my co-host. Give it up for the DFS god himself. Yes, we will have weekly DFS episodes when football season comes here, and obviously we're excited about best ball, which we'll be covering through Underdog here. Give it up for the rooftop IPA drinking, homebrew making, tobacco road living, a free lot giving, former Herndon Basketball League MVP. Give it up for NC Nick, it's the place to be.
There we go. What's going on, man?
I feel like you hear this music. That was the last time that they were really kicking ass. Now I know June Jones, I think, was kind of the first guy to really get this thing off the ground after the death blow that the NCAA and there's if you dig deeper into that, you'll find some. I thought it was a little excessive, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, it wasn't like they were doing anything that other schools weren't at the time.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
almost like the Jerry Tarkanian line, right?
Exactly.
Help me out with that. What about Cleveland State again?
He said, "Oh, Kentucky just got caught cheating, so let's ban Cleveland State for the next 10 years of the NCAA tournament."
Seriously, I mean that is the college football version,
Yeah, it really is.
Might have been joking partially, but there's a lot of truth behind that too.
Yeah, and now you've woken them up, and look, I mean, I think it happened, They were so bad in the 90s because after that, so they were disqualified from playing football in 87 and 88, which I just think was ridiculous because they had 9 straight winning seasons before that. And then when they come back, their whole team's gone because basically they just had to start up a brand new team.
Right.
2-9, 1-10, 1-10, and basically they had one winning season, 97. They were 6-5. But really until June Jones, when June Jones, year one, June Jones comes in, he's 1-11, but they were 1-11. He inherited a 1-11 team, and then 8-5, and then 7-7, and then 8-5, and then 7-6. So like that was kind of the turning point. And then, I know Chad Morris got him to a 7-win season, and then Sonny Dykes gets him to a 10-win season, and then Lashlee 11-win season. That was their best season since the 80s last season. So what do you make of this program right now moving forward?
I mean, this is their glory days maybe are yet to come. Yeah, they had some success in the 80s when they were cheating, but a lot of programs were cheating. So a
lot of guys' girlfriends are bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that you can look at is recruiting. So last year they had the 72nd best recruiting class. This year, actually even worse, the 107th. But I think this year they really focused their scholarships on transfers because they wanted to compete earlier in the Power Conference in the ACC. But next year, 2025, right now they have the 22nd ranked recruiting class in the nation and 4th best in the ACC. This is what a bump up to a Power Conference does, and this is what, when you have a lot of resources and the will to be good. And SMU has all that now. So, I mean, the future is extremely bright.
Yeah. And I know there was an article a couple weeks ago about how in 3 months, SMU raised $160 million, where the most that we'd had record of was A&M raising like, I think $151 million for athletic department in 1 year.
There is a good chance that SMU could be the best team in the ACC in 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, I agree.
Even if Clemson and Florida State stay.
Yeah, that's that. I'm telling you, it's a good get. It's really crazy that the Big 12 didn't want it. Like, I understand they had TCU in Texas, and I know a lot of the politics there, and maybe even
and Baylor and Texas Tech. And
but still, with that type of resources, you would just think. I mean, they had the fucking president of the United States, the former president, who's just making phone calls. Yeah, I'm gonna need you to get me in the ACC.
Compare it to the team in the ACC that we previewed yesterday, Wake Forest. I mean, just night and day difference. But I mean, both are private universities, but as far as like the resources and the want to be good at football, night and day difference. So, I mean, SMU is going to be, I think they're going to be pretty good this year. I don't think they're going to come in and dominate this conference like some people might think, but look ahead a couple years and they're going to be very good.
Yeah. And anytime you got a little president making phone calls on your behalf, you got to pay attention. And
Dan Marino and his really dynamic wife.
Yeah, I don't know. That was right after he called the ACC to announce that he's like, you guys got to take us. He went on a spiel about Dan Marino's wife, but
Dan Marino, ACC legend.
True. Folks, look, we're gonna dive into their coaching ranks for SMU and what's going on there. Also, the offense, defense, special teams, and game by game on the brand new schedule as they enter the All Coast Conference. But before we do that, I do want to tell you that this is the College Football Experience, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, and the Sports Gambling Podcast just launched their 32-team NFL team previews. And as a bonus team preview, just include the code word for every team preview, all 32 of them. Submit the 32 code word phrase, and you could be the lucky winner who gets a $500 NFL Circa future bet. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast and the SGPN app. And don't worry. Hopefully the NFL gets rid of that stupid kickoff. Back talking SMU football. Where you at with Rhett Lashlee, NC Nick?
Yeah, I really liked him as a coordinator at Miami. I thought he did wonders with Van Dyke, and you've seen Van Dyke regress big time after Lashlee left. I thought it was a good hire by SMU, and so far he hasn't done anything to prove me wrong. First year 7-6 out the gates, and then 11-3 last year. I'll still say that the jury's still out, I think, but I'd say so far so good for Lashlee.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can't say anything too negative. I'm not as bullish, I think, as you, but let me load up these slides. I'm gonna make a little point here.
And first off, that D, especially when the helmets where they put the D on them are fire.
Yeah, I mean, actually, there's no way to make those uniforms bad.
Yeah,
like SMU is one of the best looks in all of college football, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Rhett Lashlee's 18-9 in 2 years as a head coach. That was his first head coaching job SMU offered. Won the AAC a year ago, but he is just 4-8 against teams that are above 500.
That's a stat.
And that to me is worth noting, because last year, I mean, SMU, I thought, had the most favorable ride in the AAC.
At one point in this pod, we got to go over their wins last year.
Yeah.
Gaudy record 11-3, but we'll take a little bit of a deeper dive there.
And he coached under Gus Malzahn, Randy Edsel at UConn, Sonny Dykes, and Manny Diaz. OC is Casey Woods, also Scott Simmons at the DC spot. I think now would be the time to talk about this, because I think you look back at an 11-3 season. Now you won the AAC, so you did what you had to do, and you're not in charge of making the schedule to a certain extent. But I remember watching the ECU game. Now they ended up winning 31-10, but it took all game, and ECU was a 2-win team, right? But I was somewhat impressed by SMU's performance against Oklahoma, because that was a 14-11 game in the fourth quarter. But some of the other performances, I would say, like the Rice game, like now they beat a good Memphis team, but still, I just don't know how good this team was a year ago.
Well, let's go through it real quick. So they had 8 wins against teams that had losing records. They beat Louisiana Tech squad that had 3 wins, a Prairie View from the FCS, a Charlotte team that had 3 wins. ECU had 2 wins. Temple with 3 wins. Tulsa with 4 wins. North Texas and Navy with 5 wins. They beat Rice, who was 6-6 in the regular season. So really their only good regular season win was a nice road win at Memphis. And then you give them credit for winning at Tulane in the AAC championship on their backup quarterback. Defense really stepped up. But so overall, what do you have? 9 of those wins were shit. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
And you could also say they played 3 P4s and they went 0-3. And it wasn't like TCU and Boston College in the bowl game were even that good of P4s. So, their record is better than what they were as an actual team last year.
Fair. I agree. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't be encouraged by it. I think if you're an SMU fan, you say that's a perfect season. We can build on that season. But I do think Lashlee, I need to prove it a little more to me. He's 4-8 against teams 500 or above.
Yeah, it was a perfect time to win the AAC after those teams that went to the Big 12 departed, because it was a watered down conference and they had probably the easiest schedule within that conference.
Yes, I agree. Let's jump into, actually we do this thing for every team. What is the worst loss of the program since the turn of the century? There's a couple on here before June Jones arrived, but there is a couple that actually, one, I believe under Chad Morris, there was that La Tech game.
I think when somebody drops 75 on you at home, I think that's the worst one.
Ken Niumatalolo. These Texas schools, we're waiting for them to go back to the triple option because they're all going Leach Air Raid here. And, Patty C's thing of, man, I want to say with Navy doing this, and I think Army put up 70 on Houston right around the same time.
How do you come back from that? I mean, you just got a bunch of 2 stars at Navy or 1 stars put up 75 on you
in your own home stadium.
Oh man,
tough. Folks, look, before we get to breaking down this year's offense, I want to tell you that the college football experience SMU Mustangs season previews brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy just launched Underdog Streaks. Hit your first 2 pick'ems and pick'em entries there, and you go streaking. Yes, if you get a 11-0 run, you can win 1,000 times the amount of money you enter. Plus, Best Ball Mania is live with $15 million in prizes. I just told you they dropped college football best ball. You got to check it out. You can now use specials and boost on all flexed entries. So what are you doing, folks? Sign up. And when you do, sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. We're also brought to you by OddsJam. OddsJam is your one-stop shop for beating the sports book. Look, OddsJam uses millions of data points across every U.S. and Canadian sports book to show you the best value plays for the money. Their line shopping tool allows you to find the best price for any bet you want across countless different sports books, not just the big ones like DK and FanDuel, but Bet Online, Cut, Bovada, and much, much more. And their arbitrage tool will find opportunities where you can bet both sides of the same prop on different sports books to guarantee a positive ROI. If you're interested in trying out OddsJam, you get a free 7-day trial period today by going to oddsjam.com with the promo code SGPN. Don't forget to enter that thing though. All right. It'll get you 35% off your first month of your subscription. So promo code SGPN over at OddsJam. All right. Back talking SMU football. Shout out to Robert Martin in the chat. He goes, shout out to SMU football. I tell you, it's one of the more exciting teams in all of the land. What do you think of that logo, NC Nick?
I think it's a little too busy for my liking. I think the ones now are better. It's not bad, but that's one of the retro ones that might not be better than the current day.
Well, there's nothing better than this one.
That's classic. I mean, that's just classic right there.
Yeah, and the Calgary Stampeders bitch you. We know. Last season, I adjusted these to ACC numbers, by the way. Like, if you're wondering why they weren't in the ACC last year, but YouTube.com/.
It's not really fair though, because they weren't playing ACC teams.
I know, but I'm just gonna make a point here. Okay. But they did play one ACC team. 8th in scoring per game, 38.7. That was nationally, which would have been top in the ACC. 16th in yards per game, which 454.5 yards per game, pretty much. Second in the ACC. 22nd in passing, which would be second in the ACC. 40th in rushing, which would be 6th in the ACC. If they can even come anywhere close to these in the ACC, they might have a pretty good year.
I think they will have a decent year, but I don't think those stats really mean anything. I mean, but I still think the offense is going to be pretty good. I think they're going to be top half of the ACC. Defense is solid. There's a little bit more to replace on defense, and it's just hard to tell. I mean, their best defensive outing was probably the AAC championship game.
Or the Oklahoma game.
Or yeah, you could argue, one of those two. So I think they have some pieces on defense also. So again, they could be top half in defense, I think.
Well, they returned 8 starters on the offensive side of the ball, and their kicker, Colin Rogers. Quarterback Preston Stone.
The Stone Age in Dallas is upon us.
Yes. He was their biggest recruit ever a few years ago. And that's that he's back. Great to have him back. Jaylan Knighton is back as well. And I mean, their running back room in general with LJ Smith and Camar Wheaton and Brashard Smith, super fucking deep.
LJ Johnson.
What did I say?
I think you said LJ Smith.
Oh, my bad.
Jaylan Knighton was at Miami, so he was with Lashlee at Miami.
So was Rashard Smith.
Yeah, and LJ Johnson came from Texas A&M, so you can tell those guys are talented. So it's a really deep group of running backs here.
Yeah, and the receiver room. I think you should be encouraged if you're thinking about this. Jake Bailey, Romeo, Brinson, Jordan Hudson, all back. I think not only that, like some of the guys behind that, like Kelvontay, Dixon, and a few others, like stand out to me.
Their top 7 receivers are back, which is insane. And they really spread the ball around nicely last year. They had 7 guys with more than 350 receiving yards. So maybe you don't have like a true number 1, but what you do is you got a lot of depth and a lot of experience. Again, good group of pass catchers.
RJ Maryland at the tight end spot, all AAC first team a year ago. And then, just only bringing back 2 of 5 on the O line. And I do think this is a concern. As much money as they have, 2 of their better offensive linemen left.
For sure. It's the biggest concern on this side of the ball, because you look at quarterback, running back, receiver, you're said, okay, we're set. Offensive line, major question mark, especially with the step up in competition on their schedule.
Yeah, they did. And let's talk about what they lost. Yes. Branson Hickman on the O-line to Oklahoma. This was a late transfer to me too. From what I'm thinking is Oklahoma just offered him a shit ton of money and SMU didn't match it, or maybe he didn't want to match it. Maybe he wanted to be in the SEC. I don't know. But also Marcus Bryant heading out to Missouri. Those are the only losses that, okay, Jacob Waller goes to Tulsa, maybe a little bit of depth. I don't know, but, those are losses, man. Those are like serious losses on the O-line.
Yeah, they are. Now I know you're going to get to it, but they do bring in 4 power forward transfers who have 120 career starts between them via the portal. So they lost a lot, and obviously it was an area of need which was addressed in the portal. But you have to assume that the O-line is not going to be as good as last year.
Yeah, and they did bring in these guys. First off, Ashton Kozart, wideout coming in from Oregon. Brashard Smith, who I mentioned, now he's kind of a running back receiver hybrid. I don't know what they're going to do with him. I put receiver, but he's also, I think he's a running back more so than receiver. So I might have fucked that up, but I know he caught 69 passes with Miami. So like maybe a little Metcalf like. Matthew Hibner from the Michigan Wolverines says, win a national championship in Ann Arbor, I'll win one in Dallas, damn it. All right, he's coming in. Offensive tackle. They did grab one from Oklahoma and Savion Byrd. Also brought in Andrew Chamberlain from Arkansas, Quashawn Sapp from Florida State, Paris Patterson from Arkansas, Nate Anderson from Oklahoma, and Brock O'Quinn at the long snapping spot from Alabama. How would you grade the transfer portal?
I'd say they won it. I think it really comes down to the offensive lineman. They brought in more guys than they lost, but and they brought in guys who have started at major programs. So you have to assume they're at least serviceable. So I'd say they won it, and also I think it speaks to how well their NIL collective is right now. That the backup quarterback didn't leave, or the backup running back didn't leave, or some of these receivers didn't leave. Because a lot of times people want, I'm sure they were approached by other programs and they want, more playing time. They want the ball more. But the depth on this offense, as far as at least in the skill positions, they all stayed.
Yeah. And Kevin Jennings, the backup quarterback, that got a couple starts a season ago. Going to talk about the defense, but before I do that, I want to tell you that the SMU season preview is brought to you by Rhythm. Football season is here, and look, the college football and NFL models are now live on Rhythm. Create your own winning betting model, or let Rhythm do the heavy lifting for you. You decide what stats matter most to you, and Rhythm builds a custom model around that. Or just let Rhythm and its predictive models do the heavy lifting for you. Once again, Rhythm uses AI projections from MIT data scientists and quants. So Rhythm already has you covered for NFL week 1 and college football week 0. I told you I'm liking these Yellow Jackets plus 13 in Dublin, Ireland against Florida State. Claim your 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. Also brought to you by Circa Sports and Circa Millions and Circa Survivor. Yes, Circa Sports is back with Circa Survivor and Circa Millions, NFL Survivor. You got to love that. Giving away $16 million in guaranteed prizes. Imagine the regret you're going to feel if you enter and win your office pool, because you'll probably, unlike other things, like I feel like if you're just picking the winner in Survivor week in, week out, that'll be good in everybody's pool. So you'd be a millionaire if you win your office pool, had you just entered Circa's at the same time. If you don't have a trip booked for Las Vegas yet before football season, may I recommend the Ultimate Contest Weekend? It's a great time to go out. You can hang with my pals Stacking the Money Green and Real Money Kramer from the Sports Gambling Podcast and enjoy some of the open bar events at the greatest sportsbook in the world, August 22nd through August 24th. Use the promo code SGP15 to save you 15% on your hotel room for that weekend as well. And you want to sign up at Circa Sports between now and September 7th. You can use a proxy to play from anywhere. It's not like you got to fly back to Vegas every week. We even have a deal with footballcontest.com to save you $50 with the promo code SGP. So get on over there, use a proxy, and let it ride. Shout out to David Matola in the chat. Let's talk about these SMU Mustangs on the defensive side of the ball. They were very, very good on the defensive side of the ball as well, with Scott Simon there. I know also Ricky Hundley, but 11th in scoring per game defensively a year ago. 12th in yards nationally. We're talking nationally, folks. 13th in passing and 28th in rush defense. All of those would have been top 5 in the ACC if you throw them in there. I was pretty surprised by these numbers, but then again, I'm like, okay, if they played a bunch of dud offenses,
I was gonna say I think this might be a bit misleading, but still, they had a better defense than I thought they would going into the year.
Yeah, I agree. And you look at what they're bringing back. They're bringing back 7 starters on the defensive side of the ball. 2 on the defensive line, Elijah Roberts and Jared Harrison Hunt. Linebacker Kobe Wilson's back. Linebacker Ahmed Walker's back. Nickelback Kale Sanders is back. Cornerback Isaiah Nwokobia is back. Free safety Jonathan McGill is back. How much stock should we put in bringing 7 starters back? Now the problem is almost every ACC team probably has a better off. Like I'm trying to think like, okay, Oklahoma and TCU, they have good offenses, right? Even TCU when they were 5 and 7, I feel like they could move the ball a little bit. Memphis, good offense, and they gave up 34 to Memphis. Tulane, solid offense, but how many, like the rest of these teams, La Tech, Prairie View, Charlotte, ECU, Temple, Tulsa, Rice, North Texas, Navy, all are not going to have, I would say they'd all be dead last in the ACC in offense. No, for sure. That's why I think SMU is at best probably a middle of the road ACC defense. I mean, ACC's got like some very good defenses like Florida State and Clemson and NC State and teams like that. So their stats might look similar, but it's not the case. You have some things to work with. I mean, that guy Elijah Robert, he had 9.5 sacks last year. Now they lost a lot on the defensive line, but they also addressed that in the portal. Via on your thing there, I think Isaiah Nwokobia is going to play safety this year, which means they got to break in 2 new corners, which is an area of concern. But Wilson and Walker, those 2 linebackers, were their top 2 tacklers last year. So you tell me they got their top sack guy back, their top 2 tacklers, and both safeties coming back. It's a good starting place to work with. Yeah, and in the portal, they did lose a couple guys. Brian Massey, I'm sorry, not Byron, heading out to Houston and Wimberley to the Roadrunners. Meep. But not substantial losses, like you said. The collectives got their shit together in many ways. Now they brought in a slew. I mean, good Lord, look at this here.
That's 8 P4 transfers on the D line. So 8 on the D line, 4 on the O line. They brought in 12 P4 transfers on the line of scrimmage.
And it should be noted that they're from Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Miami, 2 from Miami, Arkansas, West Virginia, Texas Tech, and then a linebacker from Utah, a corner from A&M, a safety from Colorado, and then one mid-major guy, Terry and Lee, a linebacker from Georgia Southern. But holy shit, man, you're loading this up. You're just like, wow. Okay.
I love the volume approach because some guys probably won't work out, but as long as a couple do, you're good.
Well, and depth too matters in stepping it up too. So they definitely won the portal, I would say. Now, when you combine offense and defense,
yeah, offense was kind of questionable, but when you look at defense, so looking at the complete portal picture, they definitely won it.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see how many of these guys actually start. I know we can sit there and hypothesize on who will get the start.
And football being the ultimate team sport, it takes teams a little bit of time when there's this much roster turnover.
I know Booker is penciled in to start, I think, from Arkansas, but I'm very intrigued on the others to see where they fall.
So is Harvey from Miami.
Yeah. You have my attention, SMU. I'll put it like that. You have my attention. Win total set at flat 8. NC Nick, flat 8.
Mm-hmm.
To win the 8. And by the way, hold on. Let me tell you the juice on that. The flat 8, but
it's minus 135 on the over and plus 115 on the under.
So Vegas is saying 9-3 is way more likely than 7-5.
That's what they're saying.
To win the ACC championship plus 1,500, to make the 12-2 players only plus 1,100. I thought their odds would be worse. To win the Natty plus 25,000 there. Are you surprised by any of this?
Well, I know the schedule this year. So last year they played 2 power conference opponents in the regular season. This year they play 10 power conference teams in the regular season. Now their schedule gets much tougher. At the same time, within the ACC, it's actually a pretty favorable schedule compared to other ACC teams. Of the 6 ACC teams with the best odds to win the conference, they only play 2, Florida State and Louisville. They dodge Clemson, Miami, NC State, and Virginia Tech. And also, if you look at the 5 teams in the ACC with the longest odds to win the conference, SMU plays 4 of them. Stanford, UVA, Boston College, and Duke, only missing Wake Forest. So the conference schedule is actually pretty good compared to other ACC teams. It's just so much harder than the AAC last year.
Yeah, fair. Let's take a look at that schedule because week 0, they're heading to Reno, the biggest little city in the world. Wait, I forgot to power rank these correctly on the right, by the way, so ignore that.
Nevada's not the toughest one.
Yeah, ignore that on that side. But they're, I think, like, what is the spread on that? I saw
4, I think. Last call.
Lay it.
I think they might cover it.
Yeah. I kind of like them doing this to get themselves an extra bye week later on. That's something that we should at least mention. They also take on a terrible FCS in Houston Christian. So they're going to be off to a 2-0 start.
For sure.
And then Kalani Sitake on the hot seat coming in on a Friday night. I like this game. They should play this game every year. BYU SMU. Who are you taking here?
I think SMU is better right now. If you're looking at the graphic on YouTube, after this game, they also have a home game versus TCU after their bye. It's if they can go 4-0 out of conference, it's absolutely huge. And they're going to be favored, I think, in all those games. Maybe only by like a field goal over TCU. But I kind of feel like they might drop one of the BYU TCU games. What do you think?
I agree. Look, it should be mentioned that the Iron Skillet has been happening for 110 years. And I believe it will be coming to an end after next season, which just sucks.
It really does.
Sucks.
they do need to exact some revenge on TCU from last year.
And for taking Sonny Dykes. They're still mad about that.
Right. And they're coming off the bye. So you know what? I'm going to say they lose Friday night to BYU.
I'm with you.
I mean, that's a Friday night game, and SMU is going to be very excited for the season. That place is going to be packed. You know what? 4-0. 4-0 outside the league.
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Not me. 3-1. All right. BYU or TCU is going to get them. I kind of think it's going to be BYU. So 3-1, and then they're hosting the Florida State Seminoles. And I do think this is a game. I think some people are just putting Florida State on this pedestal because they had one magical year, but 90% of that team is gone. I feel like, as far as starters, and then you're hitting the refresh board. DJU's got to learn a third offense in 3 years. I think this is a game more than people think. And I think Florida State has Clemson on deck. It's a great look ahead game.
Fair points. All good points, but I think Florida State is better on the lines of scrimmage. I'm going to go Noles.
Upset. Give me SMU.
Ooh, okay. All right. Nice. All right. So we're both 4-1.
Now they're losing when they go to the Shack.
I have them losing at Louisville also. Yeah. So you're 4-2 at midseason. I think you're still feeling pretty good. Although if you look at my schedule, they're 0-2 in ACC play. So if that is the case, kind of bad start to conference play.
They get a bye week and then they're heading to the Farm in Palo Alto, Stanford Stadium. Win.
So the next two games, they have a back-to-back here at Stanford, at Duke. They're going to drop one of those games, I think. I guess I'll say usually the second end of the back-to-back is tougher. So I'm with you. They beat Stanford, but then drop the game to Duke.
Nope. I got them 2-0. But if anything, I worry more about the Stanford one because I think Stanford's going to be able to move the ball.
So what are we here going into the last third of the season? 5-3 here.
I got them 6-2.
Ooh, okay.
But get this. Pat Narduzzi and Pitt ain't falling for their bullshit. I got Pitt beating SMU on November 2nd.
I think I agree. I think, again, with the now you have two home games versus Pitt and versus BC. I think they split those games. I think they'll probably lose to Pitt, and then they have the bye week, and then they get revenge from the bowl game against Boston College. So I'm with you there.
Yeah, so that puts me at 7 wins. We're 1 win away. This is where it gets really hard because is Tony Elliott going to be coaching Virginia on November 23rd?
That remains to be seen. We'll see. So I'm at 6-4 though. You're at 7-3.
So my wins are Boston College, Duke, Stanford. That's 3. Florida State upset 4. TCU 5. Houston Christian 6. Nevada 7.
You're at 7-3. So one more and you're pushing. Can they win both at Virginia and home to Cal to close the season?
They're not going to win both. They're going to go 1-1.
I agree. I think they split these games, and which one it is, I'm not positive yet, but I guess I'll say they beat Virginia and lose to Cal. So for me, they go 7-5.
I'm right on the number.
What's more likely?
I'll lean under just because I'm giving them Florida State.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, now, sure. I mean, the back half of the schedule is nice, dude. Like Stanford, Duke. Look, I have Pitt as a bowl team. I have Cal as a bowl team. I do not have Stanford, Duke, Boston College, or Virginia as bowl teams. So getting 4 teams that are losing teams in the ACC.
True, but those 4 teams are better than Temple, Tulsa, North Texas, and Navy.
Agreed, but we should talk about this a little longer. Justin Wilcox could be fired by then too. And believe it or not, there's a chance
Narduzzi also.
I was about to say there's a chance Narduzzi could be too. They have potentially 3 of their final 4 games could be against interim head coaches. I happen to think Cal will be all right this year, so I think Wilcox will be there that game.
Yeah,
but I'm taking Pitt just based on Narduzzi's history. but maybe the wheels have fallen off, and maybe they do suck, and then all of a sudden that changes everything. But
Possible.
I lean. I think 8-4, but I think 7-5 is more likely than 9-3. I think there's a little bit too much. That what happens if they lose to BYU and TCU? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, shit. That you could build a case where they open up 2-4.
Yeah. I really think a nice comparison to Central Florida last year. You know, Central Florida was not ready for the grind of a major conference week in, week out. Central Florida's got a bright future. They had a lot of talent last year. They still do, but it took them, I think, a year to kind of get used to that. I think the same thing is with SMU.
I see. I'll say this though. Central Florida was still like in the rebuild of Malzahn, and they didn't spend like this, right? To load up on the roster. Like, I think SMU's in a little bit better situation. Now I happen to think UCF's, team was better, like on paper.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. And another thing
I think it's probably a bigger question marks with Lashlee though.
True. But Malzahn, I think, was still like implementing. There was a change, I would say, from Josh Heupel, who runs Veer and Shoot, to Malzahn doing this, Malzahn offense, which is just wild. You know what I mean?
Lashlee's only in year 3 himself.
True. But he was the OC under Sonny Dykes there. Yeah. So it's a lot more continuity as far as that goes. But and another thing you could argue is the Big 12, especially like UCF had to deal with the Big 12 with Oklahoma and Texas in it.
I'd have to look and see who they played.
They had to play at Oklahoma. They didn't get Texas, I don't believe.
Yeah. I feel like power rankings. Like I know last year and this year, like Phil Steele has the ACC, the 3rd best conference, and the Big 12, 4th best. But that's subjective. It's
well,
tough.
I think it's the age old tale. And I it's a great thing because like, I think they give them because Florida State and Clemson, they think are better than any team in the Big 12.
Right. ACC is a bit more top heavy.
Yeah. But then I don't think they ever value the basement as much because like, to me, the basement in the Big 12, I think, is much better than the basement in the ACC.
I'd say it's a little bit better. I mean, I don't think Cincinnati, Houston, Arizona State are that much better than Boston College, UVA, and Stanford.
I actually think the Big 12 probably has the best floor of any conference in America. In America, because Cincinnati, we're talking 2 years removed from the playoffs now. I understand it was a tough year last year, but they have had recent success. Houston's had recent success. Arizona State's had recent success.
Well, I guess I mentioned the 5 ACC teams with the worst odds or the longest odds to win the conference. Are you talking about, Duke, a team that last year beat Clemson, almost beat Notre Dame, could have beat Florida State. You're talking about Boston College, who went bowling and actually beat SMU in the bowl game. You're talking about Wake Forest, who a couple of years ago, they were a 9-win team or something. So
I'm not going to give you the Boston College one. All right. Boston College hasn't been relevant since fucking Matt Ryan.
They're relevant to this conversation because they beat SMU last year and they're on SMU's schedule this year. Sure.
And it was a bowl game and I don't even know what to make of that, but yeah, they did win the game, but I'm just saying as far as like, I don't know that they're I don't consider them like a tough game. They have a lot of making it. Bill O'Brien's got his work cut out for him. For me to start buying into Boston College, Duke, sure, with Mike Elko, the floor was certainly up. But once again, he's 2 years and he's gone. And then who was the 3rd team you mentioned? Wake Forest. Yeah, I mean Wake Forest, but still, I would still say, dude, when Arizona State's on, there's a fucking difference, man. Like Arizona State's, I understand they have recruiting infractions right now, and they can't, but they're a team that produces a shit ton of pros. They won the Heisman. The guy won the Heisman. Jaden Daniels won the Heisman last year. Who was an Arizona State transfer.
I think I just meant. Well, they have more talent than Wake Forest. Yes, but talent. I mean, Wake Forest. I think I mentioned in the thing yesterday that they've had 8 years in a row with having a Demon Deacon drafted. So they're producing some pros too. But I think we're getting off topic here because going back to SMU, it's going to be fascinating this year. Because how are they going to do against this middle of the pack or against these bottom tier ACC teams? maybe they'll do better than expected. Again, this is a team with a pretty wide variance here. I could see them. We do this for every team. What's the ceiling? What's the floor? Their ceiling, I think, is probably
10-2.
I was going to say 9 or 10 wins. I would say their floor is what? 5,
their
6?
floor, like I said, if they open up 2-4, you have potential for. Here's the thing with putting that much money into it, you have potential for shit to fall off the track at 2-4. If your wins are Nevada and Houston Christian, and BYU wins a 28-27 game, TCU beats you down, Florida State beats you down, and then you go to Louisville and get embarrassed, there is a real shot that the wheels could come off, right? So that would be 2-4. Then what? I mean, to me, the floor is like 5-7. To me, 6-6.
Yeah, they could win anywhere from 5 to 10 games. So, like I said, that's a pretty wide variance. That is why they're going to be one of the most fascinating teams to watch this season. But I don't have them like competing for the ACC championship game this year. I have them competing for the ACC championship game in a couple years. So SMU is going to be fascinating to watch this year, and it's going to be so exciting to watch their program and see what happens with it over the coming years.
Well, hear me out here on this then. If they lose to BYU, let's say they lose to BYU and TCU.
Yeah.
If they get up and beat Florida State, okay, they lose at Louisville, but I could totally see them in the ACC championship because the rest of their schedule, like I said, after Florida State and Louisville is to me 4 teams that I project to be losing records, 2 teams that I have bowl teams, but both of them are in Dallas and Pitt and Cal, and we don't even know if their coaches will be there.
I think this probably goes back to my point about as far as within the ACC, they have a pretty nice conference schedule.
That's what I'm saying. So they could play for an ACC championship. You beat Florida State, you're looking damn good,
right? I mean, that's
Louisville. If you win one of those games,
I said I don't have them competing this year, but could they? Sure, they definitely could. I think they have like the 6th or the 7th best odds of winning the conference, and the ACC is pretty wide open. I think we've mentioned it on other previews. While it would be chalky just to say Florida State, Clemson, that's probably not going to happen. A better chance is that somebody sneaks in, kind of like Louisville did last year. Louisville kind of came out of nowhere, had a very nice conference schedule, and they made it. So could SMU make it? Sure, they could. I just don't see that happening.
Oh, it makes that Florida State game so huge. I want to go down to Dallas for that game. Yeah, I mean, I actually think the more I look at this, the more I talk myself into not the over, but the ACC championship game.
Well, I do think the BYU and TCU games are very interesting. And but the fact that those 2 games and Florida State all in a row, all at home, can you win 2 of those? If you win 2 of those, you're looking pretty good for the over, at least. For the championship game, then that's where the Florida State game is much more meaningful.
Or the Louisville. Like I said, they could even lose to Florida State. If they just win one right there,
one of those 2.
Yeah. Then they are set up with that bye week. Our focus is, hey, we went out. They'll be favored in every game, I think.
Yeah.
So it's like we went out. We're definitely in the ACC championship game. Even if they lose one, they still might be in on a tiebreaker scenario.
I think the other thing you mentioned with the schedule and why it's nice is that they have 5 road trips. Louisville's the only tough one as far as home environment. Nevada's is going to be empty. At Stanford, at Duke, that's not that daunting of buildings to go into, and neither is at UVA. So the road trips are nice.
Very nice. Look, I think they're going to go 8-4, but fuck, man, I've already concocted my my ACC championship game, and I'm like, I mean, the good news is I do have Louisville beating SMU, so Louisville would still be in, with 1 loss and the tiebreaker. But man, it makes them right in the mix there. It's going to be fascinating to watch. I lean under, but it would not surprise me at all if they hit the over. Like I said, I'm exactly on the Vegas number but I think 7-5 is more likely than 9-3.
I'm pretty comfortably on the under. Might even show up on one of my locks. I'll say this stat one more time. I mentioned it earlier. Last year they had 2 games in the regular season against Power 4 opponents. This year they have 10.
There we go. Folks, give NC Nick a follow on Twitter at NC__NICK. I'm on Twitter at TheColbyD. College Football Experience is on Twitter at TCE on SGPN. And don't forget YouTube.com/The College Experience, the home for all of our stuff. Love what they're doing in basketball too. Andy Enfield coming in from USC. Check out the College Basketball Experience and the College Baseball Experience. All of those pods come together as one on the YouTube feed there, youtube.com/The College Experience. Also check out the Stadium Heads podcast, Gerald Ford Stadium. We are a fan of it. And also, Dallas has got the historic Cotton Bowl right there. We talk about the history of college football and the history of college football stadiums on the Stadium Heads podcast. Myself and college football campus tour, aka Michael Barker. Check out the Stadium Heads episodes, or wherever you get podcast at. Just type in Stadium Heads and you will get us. But yeah, also the College Football Experience on iTunes, Spotify, all that good stuff. If you can give us a 5-star review on iTunes, we'd certainly appreciate it. Let us know if you think SMU's gonna go 11-1. And yeah, NC Nick, if they go 10-2, are they in the playoffs?
So 10-2, and they're in the ACC championship game and lose, or they miss out on the ACC championship game.
This is like the Iowa thing in the Big Ten. Go listen. All of our previews are out for the most part, folks. We've done 75 previews already. But it's like the Iowa scenario where if Iowa's favored in every game except the at Ohio State game. So let's say they lose to Ohio State. Let's say they lose another game because they're Iowa and they play every game within 3 points, right? They're 10-2, but you almost don't want to make the conference championship game. So like you're almost glad you lose to Ohio State, because if you made the conference championship game, it's played in the dome where Iowa doesn't play well, and then you could get blown out and lose your seeding. So like if Oregon and Ohio State play in the Big Ten championship, Iowa just gets cruising into the 12-team playoff where they can host a game. I almost think if you're SMU, well, if you win the ACC championship, that'd be fantastic. But I almost think in a way, let's say you did lose to Florida State and beat Louisville, and let's say you did beat Florida State and lost to Louisville. Well, Louisville would have the tiebreaker over you and say, you have 2 losses and Florida State only has 1. So then all of a sudden, it's Florida State, Louisville going at it. Now one of them is going to get an auto bid, but the other might get pushed to an away game. Whereas SMU could just cruise on in with. I think the difference
between SMU versus Iowa was that Iowa's in the Big Ten.
True.
I think the playoff committee is if the ACC and Big 12 get multiple teams, I think it's a case where there's an upset in the championship game and the 2 teams from the championship game make it. Will they take an ACC or Big 12 school that didn't even make their own conference championship game? That remains to be seen, but I wouldn't feel very comfortable if I was a 10-2 SMU team that isn't playing in Charlotte.
It'll be interesting to see, folks. All right. Look, folks, this is the College Football Experience, SMU Mustang style. We are signing out of here. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.
Run and shoot. We can really run and shoot. And the whole team's looking and the whole world's looking with the cameras. Run and shoot. We can really run and shoot. And you know what you're getting, 'cause the books we written with the cameras. Everybody's trying to stop this team, but we keep on knocking them dead. They make a